Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. So today for us is the last day of our Omicron quarantine lockdown. Tomorrow we all get to be working together back in the shop working on the GTR, but for today I want to hit you guys with something that you've been asking for quite a lot, which is a garage tour update. What's going on with all the builds? I'm going to do it a little bit differently. It's going to be semi-virtual, and we're going to go from the very first build that we've ever done on B is for Build 6.5 years ago all the way up till present, going through every build, which ones we still have, which ones have been sold, how much did they get sold for, and if a build is put on hold, when are we getting back to it? I know a lot of you guys want to know about some of those builds that have been put on hold. So that's what's in store for today, but first, a short word from our sponsor. Before we get down to work, I need to take a second out to thank our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. You guys know it, you guys love it. It is one of the greatest mobile RPG games ever made. It's got a ton of champions, over 600 now, and all of those champions have their own unique factions that they come from and their own unique lore in the world of Teleria. If I already got you interested, there's links at the top of the description. Use my links to download right now on mobile or PC. But wait, there's more. This month, Raid just brought the latest addition to its huge boss roster. It's Raid's biggest, baddest, scariest boss yet. It's the Hydra. This thing's a beast. It's like a super powered clan boss. It's like a bunch of bosses all rolled up into one. It's got multiple different heads. It's a Hydra, and each one has its own unique mechanic. It can share the pain and pushes damage from itself onto your team. It can scare your champions. It can rot them from the inside. It can cloak itself in a cloud of poison and a ton of other crazy things. Pretty serious boss. If you can cut off its head though, it exposes its neck, and then it's open season. You can do a bunch of damage before it grows back another head. The whole battle though is like a crazy technical puzzle box, and it's always revealing new challenges throughout the fight. This thing's a great challenge. It's definitely one of the toughest boss fights in the entire game. What I personally love about Raid is the quality of the character development. The graphics on the characters and the graphics in game overall are just second to none. They are unbelievable. And I also love the PvP aspect. I love that I can take out my champions and go battle other people in real life 1v1. So what else is new in Raid? Raid has given away a super limited edition champion to every player in the game. You might recognize him already. It's esports legend Navi Superstar Simple. Between now and January 28th, Simple's limited edition champ is available for free to both new and old players in Raid. All you gotta do is log in for 7 days between now and January 28th, and it's yours. This is the best time to get started with Raid, so if you use the link at the top of the description or scan my QR code, you'll get some free resources and a free mystery champion straight away to kickstart your game. I'm not gonna tell you who it is, but trust me, it's awesome. Hit my link and see who you will get. All this treasure is gonna be waiting for you right here, and remember that the rewards are only available for new players for the next 30 days. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this episode. Click the links in the description. Let's get down to work. We're going to the shop. Let's go to the shop. It's where I do my work. All right, guys, we got 6.5 years of builds to go through. Let's get started. August 2nd, 2015, B is for Build's first episode ever, resurrecting a crashed BRZ. We got decently far into the resurrection, but the game plan was always to do a B is for Build road trip. We got a Lexus IS300 and a Subaru Impreza, drove halfway across the country filming the B is for Build road trip when I found my 68 Camaro, which I bought and brought home. We sold the Lexus for $1,000 in Chicago. We brought the Subaru Impreza back, sold that for $3,500 back in Portland. I still have the Camaro to this day. I did some minor work on it. It's in a good spot, it runs and drives, but I really don't know the game plan for that in the future. I'd like to do a full restoration with good body work, so I'm thinking about actually sending that off to a body shop to get the exterior done, and then we could do the interior and engine work. Then it's back onto the BRZ, and we worked on the BRZ for a while, but I could not get the BRZ to start, so I bought what I called the Plan B. I bought another BRZ. While working on the Plan B and the original BRZ at the same time, finally got a full new wiring harness for the original BRZ and got that thing to start. Shortly after that build was wrapped up. Still have that BRZ. It's the first car we ever worked on the channel, but it has definitely gone through some evolutions, which I'll show you later. Not long after that, the Plan B BRZ was wrapped up as well. That car eventually got sold so I could buy the shop that we're in now. That car sold for $15,000. I bought it for around $5,000, had a little bit of money in repairs. Decent profit. Before we jumped on to the next build, we shoved in a budget build fund, a BMW E46 that shot rockets. We built this for a $500 500-mile car challenge. It was a fun time and also later evolved into another build. In the middle of the Plan B BRZ, we unveiled the Lotus Evora, and at this point, we started working on the Lotus Evora. We got it to start, and while we were waiting on some parts, I took a crazy bet from a coworker that I could make a car into a boat. $1,000 bet said that I could drive a car into a river, drink a beer while I was in that river, and then drive the car back out of the river. That's what happened to our BMW E46. And then I sold it to somebody on Instagram for I think 250 bucks. I'm not exactly sure, but they took care of it for me, so that was perfect. The next few months were spent rebuilding the Lotus Evora, but before we finished, I bought my Toyota FJ Cruiser. This was a great investment. I bought this thing at auction for $5,000. And in the beginning, we didn't do a lot of work on it. We did scattered episodes here and there doing some light mods while we were working on the Evora at the same time. And then we wrapped up the Lotus Evora, finishing off that project. This is a car that I still have to this day. It's an awesome car. This is only a year and a half into B is for Build. At that point, things got a little bit chaotic. I got laid off from my job. I had tons of time to do B is for Build full time, so I dove straight in, working on the FJ a little bit, and then I brought the original BRZ back into the shop, pulled the engine out, and started putting a 2JZ power plant into that. At the same time, I bought an Aston Martin on auction as well, unveiled the Aston Martin, and then dropped all of that to do a $1,500 build against a, at the time, very little known YouTuber named Fareoh. He had a YouTube channel with about 2,000 subscribers, but he was a really cool guy, and he challenged me to a $1,500 rear-wheel drive build-off out in the desert. So I built my first apocalypse-themed car. It was the G35, took it out to the desert to challenge Freddie Fareoh and beat the crap out of him. It was a good time. I'd later crashed that G35 into a wall and then sold it on auction for about 1,500 bucks. That was a break-even build. We continued work on the 2JZ swap BRZ, but then came up another $500 500 mile build challenge. We built the B is for Build kind of off-road limo service, had a great time, jumped back into the BRZ, worked on the BRZ until it was finished. So I still have this build to this day. It looks just like it did back then, given a little bit of wear and tear from some street parking. 2JZ swap BRZ is just still in the collection. I don't do a lot with it. It's very fast though, and not super reliable because I built the wiring harness, so I don't trust it a whole lot. Then we returned for a little bit more work on the FJ Cruiser, which eventually led to it being black as it is now. I still have the FJ Cruiser. It still works very, very well. It's a car that I basically loan out to friends when they're in town, or other friends when their cars break, like Kyle and Oscar. We then jumped into the Aston Martin, did a couple color changes, quick build up, took it to Christmas in California, had a good time with that build. Aston Martin V8 Vantage still sits to this day looking exactly like it did when we finished it. I still drive it once in a while. It is a great car, one of my favorite Grand Touring cars. I'm thinking about getting this carbon fiber wide body kit that is available for it because I really love the looks of it, and that carbon fiber Aston Martin V8 Vantage, it can be really nice. It's also extremely low miles car and works very, very well, so something I'm really thinking about. That's why I haven't sold it or gotten rid of it. Then by pretty good timing and happenstance, I found a very, very cheap BMW M5, which I bought to build up for Chelsea. But before I could do that, I had to go do my second year in a row collab with Fareoh, where we built a somewhat driftable Ford Explorer that Adam LZ made fly. Got back home, got onto the M5, wrapped up the M5 so Chelsea had a new daily driver. Chelsea later crashed this car, so I fixed it again. She then crashed it again, and I think I fixed it again, and then I think she crashed it again, and then I sold it to a viewer who sent me some footage of it, but I think I lost the footage. But it is back, it is on the street, and is being used as a daily driver somewhere. I think I sold that. I have no idea how much I sold that for. Since it was crashed, I think I sold it for about the same amount that I bought it for, around $8,500. It's like a break-even build. It's tough to say because the crashes add up. Then we started in on my RX-7 imported from Japan that was hit by a tsunami. Very, very cool build that we challenged ourselves to be able to do in 21 days, filming a video, I think, every single day. 21 days later, we had a beautiful RX-7 from about 15 feet away, but once you got close, there was some flaws in the paint. It really needed to be redone. But that car actually got sold because it was really hard to get in and out of, and I didn't like the right-hand drive. So I sold it to a viewer for 15,000 bucks. I bought it for 3,000 bucks, so it was a pretty good profit. I later wanted a left-hand drive RX-7, so I bought one from the Gears and Gasoline guys that is left-hand drive and doesn't have an engine, and that cost me 8,000 bucks. So I'm not doing super great in the RX-7 game, but I think I'll be all right. So yes, I did just spoiler the fact that we do have an RX-7 sitting back there. But it was shown in some footage a long time ago anyway, so. Then we started on one of the craziest builds we've ever done, which was a 240Z built around all BMW M5 powertrain. So we bought a BMW M5, ripped it apart, bought a 240Z, ripped it apart, built a custom frame to start getting ready to accept all the BMW goodies. Not too far into the build, I bought my Drift 370 and a Mercedes something or other SL, SE, AMG, that's it. Bought a Mercedes something AMG. Then it was back onto the 240 work for quite a while until it got interrupted by the Gambler 500. Our first time going to the Gambler 500, we decided to not bring $500 cars, but instead bring ridiculous cars, which is where our Corvette came into play, which was our vet cart build. So we built the off-road vet cart and we built the Otis Mercedes style 550 AMG something or other. I'm not really sure. It didn't have an AMG motor in it. It was just badges and fake body parts, so I really didn't care at all. I still have the Otis Mercedes. I still have the off-road Corvette. The off-road Corvette got jumped in the Gambler and we damaged the rear frame section, so it's been used for parts. The engine now lives in the Jumpicon. The transmission is still in it, and I'm waiting to steal that for some project or another because it's a good tram. The Otis Mercedes has no roof anymore. It had a tarp on it, but that tarp didn't last long, so it's collecting water. Yeah, we built it 3 years ago, so it's been sitting outside for 3 years. It's kind of too cool looking to get rid of, but also I have no reason to have it. And after a few hard months of working, we wrapped up the V10 powered 240Z, brought it to SEMA. It was a huge hit. People loved it. And it's an amazing, amazing sounding, amazing driving car. The thing drives like it's on rails. This is a build that I still have to this day. I never plan on selling it. It has gone up a lot in value, and I'm just really happy about it. It's a really cool car. Then we started on our most popular build ever, which was a R35 GTR rebuild. It was a lightly hit R35 that we rebuilt. But before we finished it, I had to fly out to Florida to do my next collab with Tavares, which I always love doing. We rebuilt a Z4 in about 4 days. That car was a terrible piece of crap. I still have it. I don't want to sell it because I don't want anybody to end up with such a piece of crap. It's a triple salvage car that never should have landed in my hands. It looks pretty, and like nothing else works on it. The engine works, we made that work, but nothing else. So we don't know what to do with it. Pretty quickly after that, we wrapped up the R35 GTR, road tripped it out to Disneyland, had a great time. The wing was a little bit unhappy or maybe a little bit sketchy, so we ended up fixing that later on down the line. But that was the wrap up for the R35 GTR. Still have this car. It's right behind me. We did steal the intercoolers off of it for a little bit for this current R34 GTR, but if we haven't put the intercoolers back on yet, we will very soon. And then that's just another running and driving car that we have to use at our disposal. So we took all the ad revenue from those amazing views we did on the R35 GTR, and I bought a Lamborghini. So I always wanted one, and I'm glad that I bought the one that I always really wanted. Lime green, Spider, Lamborghini Huracan, very, very lightly damaged, just a lot of technical issues with trying to figure out how to get those safety rollover bars to go down, but we got it figured out and rebuilt the car into a 5-colored car, but I did not dare paint that car, so it had to go off to paint. When it went off to paint, we jumped into the Raptor. Bought a, again, pretty lightly crashed Ford Raptor, did all the good repairs on it. This is what I would consider my daily driver. It's the thing that I use the most, or it's my shop truck, whatever you want to call it. I drive this thing all the time. After we wrapped up the Raptor, we did a few final touches on the green Lamborghini and wrapped up that build. This is one of my favorite cars that I own. I think it is my favorite car that I own. I drive it all the time. And in my opinion, this is kind of crazy to say, but I think it's the best car in the entire world. You go any more expensive, parts are impossible to find, and you're way too worried about anything happening to it. And then you go cheaper and the cars are just cheaper. So it's awesome. Once we had the green Lamborghini done, we decided to jump into the Burncon, which was the overall game plan to always build the green one, copy the body panels on for the Burncon. But we did run out of time while we were building the Burncon, so we actually ended up buying carbon fiber body panels instead of making them ourselves. It was also a lot cheaper. And in the middle of that there Burncon, we did buy a 30-year-old Italian yacht, which is now a 32-year-old Italian yacht. And we just did one quick episode on it and enjoyed the yacht until later on when everything went wrong. So then it was back onto the Burncon. We got it in a running and driving state. We took it to SEMA. We brought it back home. We continued to do improvements on it until we threw down about 800 or 900 horsepower on the dyno. Then we did another round of improvements on it. We took it autocrossing. We threw down 900 to 1,000 horsepower on our internal dyno, and we did not run out of car power. We just got too scared inside this little shop to keep pushing up the power. We did take it autocrossing and it beat a 400 horsepower BMW, which I'll show you later. It beat the Mustang. It's a really good running and driving car, but it is not finished yet. And this is the first one we're gonna get into what's the next step plans for this build. If I'm being really, really honest with you guys, this was built to be a drag racing car. Every time I drive this car, it scares the living shit out of me. It has an insane amount of power. It has no ABS, it has no roll cage. And it's just been one of those things where I've been like, am I really gonna strap myself into this thing and go flying down a drag strip? I think my odds of crashing a car that is this powerful are astronomical. The lowest amount of horsepower we can set this thing to is 650 to the wheels. That is the lowest horsepower we can go on our settings. So it's a scary car that I really haven't known what to do with. The other thing is, according to the NHRA rule books, any car that ran under an 11-second quarter mile, which the Burncon will do no problem, has to have a roll cage in it. Putting a roll cage in that car completely ruins it. I know that because I ruined one with the Jumpicon. NHRA recently changed their rules and said if you have a stock bodied car, you can run up to a 9.5. So that's our new goal. We are gonna redo the wiring harness in that car, and we are gonna bring it back, hopefully for LS Fest West. So that's when you should see that build next. Well, first you'll see us working on it, but we are bringing it back, and we're gonna do more improvements, and we're gonna get back out on it. Back to the builds. Once we stopped on the Burncon, we jumped into a flooded WRX STI that we rebuilt in just about a week and a half or so. And then we did a last person to take their hand off this thing wins it. My friend Adrian won it. We ended up selling it to another friend of the channel for $7,500. Since then, the value of these cars has skyrocketed. I really wish I could buy it back for $7,500. But yeah, very, very cool car though. I just wish it had a full roll cage and it could be like a rally car for me to drive around here. I then went to Japan and bought a JDM Supra, which I showed you guys when I was on my trip to Japan. And we brought it back home and then it got sold in parts and ways to be able to buy this R34 GTR. Now, bit of a spoiler, the guy that I sold it to still has it, hasn't done anything with it, and I am in talks to being able to buy it back. It's a very complicated story, but basically I've accidentally broke the windshield on our R34 GTR here, and he has one of those for sale, and he also has my Supra, so I figured, I'll just buy them both. So I don't know when you guys will see it and when we'll work on it, but probably have a Supra coming up some point. It was time for another Tavares and BS for Build collaboration. I bought a Lexus SC300 from St. Louis, shipped it to Florida, blew up the engine drag racing in Florida, shipped it back here, bought a big old high horsepower LS from Texas Speed to drop into it. Then I decided I wanted to put that LS into something a little bit different, which you guys will see coming up later. So I gave the Lexus SC300 to Wrench every day. It is now in Georgia with those guys. Well, with that guy, with Jared. It's in good hands. And then for the next 6 months, we worked on a body swap, a 2015 Mustang GT with a 1967 Mustang fastback body on it, with some questionably legal styling. And well, the lawyers got involved and the build got gone. So that was 6 months of my life gone, and I know it's a sore spot for a lot of you guys, but I'm happy to tell you that we did do a redemption build, which was Oscar's build, and then we did Kyle's build, and then we started on my build. So let's get into that. But I do want to say that we're not done with 67 Mustangs. We are done with questionable movie style and legality, but we're not done with the 67 Mustang fastback, highly modified unicorn car. I got some stuff in the works. Anyways, the second I knew I was gonna lose that one, I wanted some redemption. So Oscar really wanted a notchback Mustang, not a fastback Mustang. So I said, you know what? Let's build you this car. So we got another Mustang GT. We already had an old Mustang body. We started cutting the body off of that. At the same time, we worked on a car for Kyle, wide body BMW 335i. I know these cars had a ton of modding capabilities, could make really high horsepower. I wasn't wrong. So we finished up both of those builds. In the middle, I was working on my own build, the single seater, which I'll talk about last. So we built Oscar's car. It was incredible, looked good, took it out autocrossing. That's a stunner looking of a car, really cool. Our first patina build is what I would call that. We built Kyle's car and modified it. It does 420 horsepower to the wheels. I think it's faster than my Lamborghini Gallardo. It's an insanely fast little BMW with only about $1,200 worth of mods on it. And then I basically built the frame skeleton for the single seater. Now, a lot of you guys have mentioned the single seater. When is it coming back? Is it gonna be built? I would like to bring that in some way or form to Holly LS Fest. I would like to have at least maybe running and driving, maybe the body not completely done. I don't know. One of the big problems with it is it's a huge vehicle and it takes up a lot of space in the shop. And so that's one thing that we were working on is I am actively trying to get a bigger shop. We're trying to build one back there, but I'm also trying to rent one in the meantime because the whole building thing is going a little slow. Single seater also got very, very interrupted by the boat breaking down. We took the boat out to the ocean, engine exploded, brought the boat back. COVID was in full swing, parts were really hard to get. Our engines were 6 months delayed getting to us. By that time, we had some pretty serious deadlines for other builds. So we were working on the Jumpicon. And again, with shop space limitations, that did not work out well. We didn't have room for Oscar to be working on an engine behind us working on the Jumpicon, which is an insanely wide vehicle. So we got to a point where we had one engine proven out, ready to go into the boat, runs, everything's great with it, but we need to work on the other engine and we just don't have shop space. So what's going on with the boat, you may ask? We still have it. It is still in the shipyard in Astoria. It's ready to accept the engines. We have one engine ready. We need to prep the other engine, put it in there, wire it, run the boat. So the game plan is right now that after Holly LS Fest in April, the weather should be a little bit nicer because right now the weather down there is miserable. Once the weather's a little bit nice in April, after LS Fest, we're gonna make a hard stop and we are gonna go work on that boat. We could get started even earlier if we get a bigger shop so we can start working on the engine in the background. That's one of those projects where there's a lot of ordering parts, gets interrupted a lot. It makes it really, really hard to make the YouTube show and everything while building an engine that takes a month to assemble. So the Jumpicon, the largest project that we've ever done, took us basically the better part of a year to complete this project, but we didn't really interrupt it with too many silly things. We built a silly Mini Cooper for $500. We still have that Mini Cooper. We continued to work on it and fine tune it, race it, break it, race it, break it, fix it. Then I broke Oscar's back with it, and I decided it was time to take a little bit of a break from that vehicle. But we did some more work on it to finish it up for SEMA. We brought it to SEMA, and this month we are gonna be doing some more improvements to it and taking it out for another drive, hopefully in some snow in the mountains. Let me know where you guys would like to see us drive it, but it's gonna be back out in January. Then we started on this here R34, R35 GTR body swap combo, which is coming right along and should be done in the next few weeks. And then we're on to the next build. 6.5 years of building cars. A lot of crazy projects that we've been through. The game plan for coming up 2020, I would say one of the biggest things is we need a bigger shop so we can all be working efficiently and effectively, not in everybody's space and not working on top of each other. That's the biggest problem we have right now. It's kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why I haven't done this before. I guess in my mind I was hoping that that shop that we're gonna build on this property here would be done a lot sooner, but it ain't. Government regulations, permits, things like that, it takes way longer than I expected. I don't know why I didn't expect that. But I hope that answers everybody's questions about what's going on with the build that they like the most and when's it gonna come back and what's the game plan for it. All of those things I should have answered. If not, drop a comment below and I will get to it. The big two ones that stand out to me are the boat and the single seater. And the boat, like I said, April, we're gonna start on it no matter what project we're in the middle of. And the single seater, every time I have a spare minute on my computer, I am working on refining that 3D model, looking at from engineering aspects, how we can build things faster and better and cleaner to bring that build to fruition. So what I'm really hoping that we see is in the next 30 days or less is we move into a very, very much bigger shop, something at least 4 times the size of this shop. We'll have room for cars in the background, so let me know which cars that you would like to see kind of lined up inside the shop to remind you that yes, we do finish some projects, and then we'll be working on, I think, more than one thing at a time from here on out, because that's just the fastest way to build cars. There's no professional car shop where everybody sits around and all works on one project at a time. Professional car builder shops, there's multiple builds going on, because if you have a part that is delayed or something gets delayed, you have something else to work on. And that's kind of the setup I think we need to get to if we want to build efficiently. All right, guys, tomorrow we're all allowed to work together again and we get back to work on this. What color is it gonna be? Can you guess? All right, guys, I'll see you later. Peace! Come on.